Private Thompson here. Haven't been in the militia very long, but I'm proud of what I do, and all of us are proud. We're fighting, and there's warfare going on all over. And you know, my cousin Charles Thompson, he's down there at the Continental Convention, and they're putting together the Declaration of Independence. He's the secretary. Well, he doesn't do a lot of recording of minutes, but he takes the votes. That's his job. That's what he's doing. And we're here. We're fighting. We're fighting the British. It's really confusing because you see, we're not very well organized. The war's already begun. You know the Battle of Lexington and Concord, where the British came marching out, and they were going to get our guns and things that were stored there at Lexington, and they opened fire right there on the village green, and they killed a bunch of our men. Some militiamen like me, we practice a lot, but we really haven't shot our guns at anybody in anger before. And I hear from the guys it was really frightening. But we got them. We got them back, because when they had to walk back to Boston town, oh boy, we got them bad, real good. And we were shooting them up and hiding in the trees, and they marched all the way back, and they had a lot of casualties. And then at Bunker Hill, yeah, we got them there too, because we militiamen, we heard around about the word was raised, and some 20,000 of us started to converge on Boston. But they were up on that hill. It was really Breed's Hill, but you know that. And then the British came. We were dug in, and they came up the hill. At least the boys that were there were on that hill, and they were in that big trench and entrenched, and they were firing, and then they destroyed that first British line, and it was kind of incredible, because those were the best soldiers in the world we were shooting at, and we were just militia and a bunch of men with guns. Well, they came up at them again, and they let them have it one more time, and well, it happened again, but they were getting low on ammunition. We just didn't have enough on hand, and the last few volleys were shot on that third charge, and they came at our militiamen with bayonets, and it was a bloody mess after that. And a lot of good Americans died. We killed more British, but a lot of good Americans died. So now, they're debating. General Washington is up here in the field with us, and he's trying to get things organized. And the debate's going on now. Are we going to really go for independence? Can we really go for independence? Or are we going to reconcile? Because a lot of people believe that if we reconcile, things will be okay. Because they don't want to really hurt us. We're fellow British, just like they are. We just live farther away, and we're all one and the same. John Adams says that 1/3 of the country is for independence, and 1/3 of the country is against independence, and 1/3 of the country, they don't know what they're for, and they're sitting on the fence wondering which side's going to push them over. So that's kind of the mess we're in. No majority to really decide, but we've got a lot of determined men. We've got Henry Knox. He's been put in charge of all the artillery. You know Henry Knox. Henry Knox, the big fat guy? I didn't say that. He's 240 pounds. He's only in his 20s. But Henry, he was a bookseller. You know what he's doing now? You're going to die. I swear you're going to die. He's been put in charge of all the artillery, all the cannons. And why? Well, he got to read all those books, and he knows more about artillery than anybody here in the colonies. And so the general put him in charge. Good old Ox Knox is now in charge. Yeah, he's read a lot, and so he's got an idea. The British are in Boston, and they've got their ships in the harbor. And well, we've got to get them out somehow, and so the best way to do that is with cannon. But the problem is we don't have cannon. Well, we have some, but we need a lot of cannon. But do you remember Ethan Allen, those Green Mountain Boys? Well, they took that big fort up north, the Ticonderoga. Well, they took that fort and they've got those cannon up there. It's 300 miles away and it's wintertime and they got to get it out of the snow. But that's what Ox Knox says he can do. He says it'll take 16 or 17 days and he can bring all those cannon and big mortars back. You know what mortars are. Mortars are like stubby cannons. They're rounded and they got a big ball it just puts in them and you light the fuse in it and you light the fuse here and it shoots that big ball out and it goes real high up in the air and then it comes down over a wall. It doesn't shoot into the wall, it goes up over the wall and that thing explodes with such tremendous fury and the shrapnel, the metal shards of it go flying out and it just kills anybody behind the walls. So it kind of makes walls ineffective. And they've got mortars and big cannon there at Ticonderoga. Yeah, 16, 17 days. No way that's going to happen. But he goes up there. And he's smart. He's real smart. And you see, snow would normally slow everybody down, but it freezes the rivers and it covers all what's left of the roads, and you put them on sleds. He's going to put the cannons and put them on sleds, you see, because he can just pull them along, but it's going to take him not 16 or 17 days, no. It's going to take him 6 weeks. But they're going to get here, and it's going to change everything. Because the general, what he's done is he's put him up on top of Dorchester Heights. Now that may not mean anything to you, but it overlooks the whole harbor of Boston. And right down there would be where the ships would be. And he got them all up in one night. We prefab. The ground was frozen. I mean, it's bitterly cold, and the ground was frozen, but we got prefabricated barriers that we put up, and in a single night, boom, suddenly everything is in place, and the British, the generals look up, and they see up there on the heights that we've got cannon, and they're just shocked out of their minds that we've got cannon, and they're in trouble. Now, they are in deep trouble, because you see, because we command Dorchester Heights, we can start lobbing in the artillery shells, the cannonballs, and we can totally obliterate the entire British fleet. Oh, they know they're in trouble. They've got to get out. They've got to get out because there are over 20,000 of us, militiamen, just like me. We've got them surrounded, and we're going to get them. But they send out an ultimatum. They want out. And they say, if you'll let us leave in peace, everything will be okay. It'll be fine. We won't destroy your town of Boston. Well, that's not much of a deal. We can destroy them, but General Washington lets them go. You know why? Because we don't have any gunpowder for the cannons. But they don't know that. They think we're all loaded up here and ready to blow them away. But we don't. They go away and Boston is free. This hotbed of revolution, this city of Boston with Sam Adams and John John Hancock, it's free. The redcoats are out. Two events are going to happen that are going to change things. And all this debate over, do we reconcile or do we fight for independence? What are we going to do? What are the colonies going to do? It's going to be decided real soon. In January of 1775, some things are going to change real quick. The first thing is the British. They're going to be bringing in Hessians. German mercenaries. King George III, he's a descendant of the Hanover kings. They're German, and they're getting all their buddies and relatives and other kings, and they're buying mercenaries, and they're sending them over here. I mean, they're sending over Germans. They don't care about us. There's going to be raping and pillaging, and it's going to be bad. And it's got everybody riled up, and we're really angry about the fact that they would treat us this shabbily. We used to be the same. We used to be British subjects. So that changed things. It's going to be war, and we know it. And the other thing is this a pamphlet, a little booklet has been published. It's called Common Sense. And everybody's reading it. I mean, everybody's reading it. It's only been out 3 months and it's sold 120,000 copies. First off the bat, we didn't know who wrote it. We thought maybe it was Adams that wrote it. And then maybe we thought it was Franklin that wrote it. I mean, it was so blatantly made sense. It just common sense. Well, it was written by an Englishman who just newly immigrated here. His name is Thomas Paine. Now, he was the son of a poor farmer there in England, and life wasn't very good for him. He was self-educated, but he failed at absolutely everything he did. No, he tried a lot of things. He was a corset maker. He was a tax collector. And, he was bad at everything. But you know what he was good at? He was a troublemaker. Yep. Yeah, just like so many of us rebels, we're troublemakers. And he liked to debate. He'd get with his buddies in his taverns and they'd debate and they'd talk about all the issues that were in front of Parliament, all the injustices in the world, everything that was happening in the world of law. And he was quite intelligent and knew quite a bit of things. And when Franklin heard about him, he invited him over to here, to the colonies. And he sponsored him to come over. And he got a job. He got a job in the Pennsylvania Magazine as a writer, and he first starts off, boom, right off the bat, he's gonna be talking about important things like slavery and the abolition of it. I mean, hot topics that are relevant. Well, he writes this incredibly treasonous pamphlet called Common Sense, in which he articulates our views as Americans in such a way that we never thought of it even out loud. I mean, we never said it to anybody how we really felt. How the king was really a royal brute and tyranny was pressing down upon us, and that the only thing that we could do is, as citizens, was to fight against the tyranny. We had to get rid of it. And it was also so plain, and it's amazing that nobody said it so well before, but 500,000 of them are in circulation now, almost as many as copies of the Bible here in the colonies. And everybody's reading about it. And it's changed a lot of people's minds. It's a firestorm that's spreading across the country that says independence. We've got to have independence. Now, Thomas Paine, he's going to go on to help. He's actually going to be with the Army, and he'll write more pamphlets. And he'll try to encourage people because he believes in the cause. And when General Washington gets down and writes letters back to the Congress saying that there's just no money and the troops are in bad shape, this Thomas Paine, he'll dig into his own pockets and pay $500 to help out the cause. He'll eventually lose his job as one of the secretaries in the Foreign Service, but he's trying to raise money for the revolution. The man is a patriot, and he's just only arrived. He's just only gotten here. And he's working harder than a lot of the people around here. The Second Continental Congress is going to meet. Now, the First Continental Congress, when they met, they were still trying to reconcile. But the Second Continental Congress, when they meet, it's different now. All those battles have already taken place. There's already dead people. People have already given their lives for freedom. Freedom or death. And they were killed. And now we got to get the freedom for them. And that's where my cousin Charles is. He's there recording the votes. And there's all kinds of disputes. It's June, and it's going to be hot. Oh, it is unseasonably hot. And right next to the hall in which they're meeting is a stable. And there are horseflies aplenty. And if they leave the windows open, the horseflies are just all around them. They're swatting and killing these things all the time. Oh, and it's hot, just unbearably hot. But they're going about the business of putting together ideas for a declaration of independence. But if you propose it, if the man who gets up and says, I think we should vote for this, that man will commit treason the moment he stands up. That means if the British catch him, they will kill him. takes a brave man to do that, to stand up and be the first one who says, we need independence. And it happens. It's a Virginian, Richard Henry Lee, on June 7th, 1776. He stands up and he says, we should be free and independent states. It kind of sends a panic, because now it's going to be discussed. It's now a motion on the floor. And they postpone Congress. Some people have cold feet and they want to go home to their home states and talk to the people. Others just want to buy a little time to see if they can maybe derail this and find a way to find peace without having to fight for independence. A committee is formed to write the Constitution. Oh, it's going to have all the big names. Franklin's going to be there, and John Adams, he'll be on the committee. Thomas Jefferson, one of the youngest members of Congress, he'll be there. He's 33. Roger Sherman, Robert Livingston, they're all going to be charged with writing this, but it's going to fall on the shoulders of just one man. Yeah, it'll be Jefferson for a number of reasons. Number one, he is a Virginian, and Virginia is the oldest colony. It is the colony that is preeminent. They are the most important. They have more people. And so it's got to be a Virginian. Virginia has got to lead the way. Well, and John Adams says it's also because he can't write it because nobody likes him, because he's obnoxious. Well, so he says, you should do it. You should do it, Jefferson. And he says, and besides, you're 10 times better the writer than I am. And so Jefferson takes that task, and he's going to write the Constitution. Pardon me, he's going to write the Declaration of Independence. He's 6'2", he's a tall and he's a handsome man, and he's everything. By that I mean he can do everything. He's a farmer, he's an architect, he's a philosopher, he's a lawyer, he's a musician, he's a writer, he's a politician, he's a statesman. If you talk to him and you're talking about medicine, you think he's a doctor. If you're talking about bridge construction and you're talking to him, well, you think he's a civil engineer. Anything, any subject you want to talk about, he knows about it. He is one of the most intelligent men, not only in the colonies, but I'm sure in the entire world. He's a shy man. He doesn't like to debate much. He's a tender man. He doesn't speak much. But his pen speaks for him, because he is a writer. Oh, that man is a writer. He's the eldest son of very rich tobacco farmers, of 3,000 acres of land, oh, the best land, and wealthy, and he's a slave owner. And at age 14, his father died, and where he was then schooled in Latin and in Greek and the classics and music. He is a fiddle player. He and Patrick Henry, they like to get together and play fiddles together. He's going to go to William and Mary, the college, and he will excel. And 3 people are going to look over him and help take care of him, one including the royal governor. He's going to be voted into the House of Burgesses, like his father was. And he's kind of young and naive. And so when he gets up there to get a chance to talk about government, he gets up and he says, I'd like to have a bill to limit slavery. And he is shouted down, welcome to government in Virginia, a deep slave state. He does not believe that slavery is a right and proper thing. He believes it should be eventually abolished. He writes pamphlets on the rights of British Americans that are the word is published all about, and he becomes a famous man throughout all the colonies. But the royal governor is going to close down the House of Burgesses, and the Second Continental Congress will then meet. He will share his views with other eminent men, Franklin and John Adams, and he will write the Declaration. And it will be debated in front of Congress. 86 changes are going to be made. 400 words are going to be changed. One of the things, there's arguments. There's so many different sides here, and he's got to get them all together so as one huge group we can represent ourselves, not as individual colonies, but as a nation. And so one of the clauses has to go, that one about the peculiar institution of slavery. He accuses George III of waging a cruel war against the Africans and carrying them off into slavery, and to perpetuate this year after year in the colonies. It was under the British that all of this happened. The Southern delegates, they are not going to have any of it. led by Rutledge. Oh no, they will have absolutely none of this. If this is included in the Declaration of Independence, you can count many of the southern colonies will vote against it. There will be no Declaration of Independence. Therefore, it must go out. No matter what many people believe as something completely and totally evil, it's got to stay in. Slavery will be a part of this new nation, or there will be no new nation. It is an ugly compromise. It looks doomed on several occasions. It's just deadlocked, men arguing about reconciliation, independence, until one of the deadlocks is resolved when a mortally ill Rodney Caesar arrives after traveling 80 miles. The man in pain casts the vote for independence. All the motions pass. We are going to have a Declaration of Independence, a letter stating to the world that we are a new nation, that we have broken the bonds which have bound us to our mother country because of their tyrannical acts. 25 separate wrongs are listed. The abuses that we have endured, they deprive us of trial by jury. Why? Because colonists will not convict other colonists who sit as their peers in juries of certain laws. And so they abolish trial by jury in many cases. They cut off our trade. They enforce blockades to starve us. They tax us without representation. They house soldiers in our homes against our will. That and many more. But it passes. The names of the delegates are not originally published, nor is the author, the primary author, Thomas Jefferson. That's not released, that information, because it's treason. And these men need to make their escape. You know the penalty for treason. Hung by the neck, and then before you're dead, they cut you down. They rip you open, pull you apart, and quarter your body. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. They were men that knew that something had to be done. Let me read for you just a moment. In this declaration that was published for the world, and specifically for Britain, it said, "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and the laws of God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, so plain that anyone can understand them, that all men are created equal. And even though it was a bit of a mockery that we still had slaves, we believed, and Jefferson tried to put that in, but to preserve the nation's independence and to gain this new nation, they had to give that up. That all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers, their just powers, from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to establish a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness." This declaration was put out to the world to see. It was our banner for the world to know that we are a new nation. A nation built on ideals. Ideals, all men created equal. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And when governments fail to uphold the part of the bargain, you have the right to destroy the old bargain and create a new nation. And this is what we've done. The signers of the Declaration, these men that were responsible for that document, they were amongst the best, the very best that this nation had to offer. 9 of them were farmers, 24 of them were lawyers. I suppose that's why they argued so much. They were businessmen. What will happen to them? 5 of them will suffer captivity by the British, and they will be tortured and killed. 12 are going to lose their homes, their plantations. They're going to have them burned to the ground. The enemy will come through and absolutely eradicate. Now, everyone knows who they are. Once their names are out and about, if the British come through the neighborhoods in which they live, if they are caught, they will be dead men, and their property is going to be destroyed. 2 are going to lose sons, fighting like me, here in the militia. 2 will be captured, which is nearly as bad as death, for the prisons are awful. Some of them are rotting on prison ships and harbors. If you want decent food, your parents have to send money. Otherwise, you will just be eating the gruel that they serve you there. If you get sick, there's no money for medicine unless it's provided by the relatives and friends who must send money. 9 are going to fight and die of wounds or of hardships associated with battles and the war itself. Thomas Nelson. The Battle of Yorktown is going to happen, and his house, his big, beautiful house, is going to be used as an enemy headquarters. And he will quietly urge General George Washington to target the guns on his home. And it will be completely destroyed. And he will die a bankrupt man. John Hart is forced to flee from his sick wife, his 12 children running off into the wilderness. He lives in a cave, in the forest, hiding out for a year. He returns home to find his wife dead, his children gone. And weeks later, he dies, brokenhearted. These are men. These are men who valued liberty more than property. These were men who truly believed what they wrote when they said they pledge for the support of this declaration. With firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we pledge mutually to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And this those men did. And this country was born in blood.